We have over 80 participants, including overseas friends, who have joined us virtually via the live stream as well. Thank you. We have not forgotten you. I'm showing your MC for this evening. On behalf of the Singapore Institute of Planners, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this evening's celebration. We are very happy and honored to have everyone joining us today. SIP is a very close-knitted professional body. Today, we are gathered here to celebrate the 50th years of SIP. While many have been with SIP since the beginning, there are some, including myself, who had only joined SIP in recent years. So without further ado, let us welcome our President of Singapore Institute of Planners, Mr. Wilfred Loo, to give his opening speech. Mr. Wilfred.
Oh, sorry. Need to wipe that. Yeah, my reading glasses, yes. Belies my age. Yeah, good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Singapore Institute of Planners, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to our guest of honor, Minister for National Development, Minister Desmond Lee. Thank you, Minister, for gracing our event this evening. A warm welcome also to our distinguished guests here with us this evening, CEO URA, Mr. Lim Eng Hui, Chief Planner and DCO of URA, Ms. Huang Yuning, Chairman of the Center for Livable Cities, Dr. Cheong Koon Hian. Tonight I learned that she was chairman of another body, and Senior Advisor in HDB, Mr. Fong Chun Wah, and Group Director of Research and Planning in HDB, Dr. Chong Fook Loong. Yeah, thank you for taking time to join us tonight. Some of our elderly, distinguished pioneer members are not able to join us in person this evening. They have, however, sent their best wishes to SIP. We would like to thank and acknowledge them and hope that they are well and able to join us online. Mr. Alan Cho, he's already 91, Dr. Liu Tai Ke, Mr. Ong Tiong Pin, and Mr. Tan Kah Ho. To all SIP members and friends present here on site or joining us online from Singapore and from overseas, we would like to thank you also for celebrating with us SIP's 50th anniversary. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Sabana Jurong Global Academy for extending the use of this lovely premises to us for our anniversary event. Thanks also to SIP's organizing committee and team for their preparation and all their hard work to make this evening possible. Finally, I would like to thank in particular two of our SIP members for their very generous sponsorship of tonight's event. And they had, however, requested to remain anonymous, but my special thanks to both of you. 50 years ago, in May 1971, the Singapore Institute of Planners was founded. Pardon me, I think it's so difficult to talk. By our first cohort of urban planners in Singapore. Our founding members had formed Singapore SIP to further nurture the urban planning profession and to promote best practices in planning for the benefit of the community. Our founding members are Mr. Chua Ping Chai, the first president of SIP from 1971 to 1973. He served in the planning department of MND for 17 years and was also the chief planner from 1973 to 1976. Next is Mr. Alan Cho. He was our first vice president of SIP. He was HDB's first town planner in 1962, and he helped to define Singapore's public housing standards then. He also formed the Urban Redevelopment Unit in HDB that eventually became the URA in 1974, where he became the first general manager of URA. Two other founding members are Dr. Liu Tai Ke. He was the CEO of HDB from 1969 to 1989, and the chief planner of URA from 1989 to 1992. Next was Mr. Ong Teng Cheong. He joined the planning department in MND in 1967 and was soon seconded to the UNDP-assisted state and city planning project for the long-term strategic planning for Singapore. He's better known as Singapore's 5th president. The other members in SIP's first council are Mr. Loh See Hong, Mr. Chu Bok Lam, Mr. Tan Jek Hui, and Mr. Sia Kim Bee. In 1971, the main aims of the Institute were first, to advance the study of town planning and civic design, and second, to promote the aesthetic, economic, scientific, and social developments of urban and rural areas in the best interests of community. Our founders also saw the need then to increase public confidence in employing recognized town planners by admitting to the Institute only those who have adequate knowledge of the theory and practice of town planning. They also saw the need to advance those who were engaged in or interested professionally in town planning, and thus offered associate memberships to qualified professionals from the allied disciplines of architecture, engineering, sociology, economics, and geography. These early aims or goals have pretty much remained with SIP till today. SIP's membership increased steadily over the years through the 1980s, 1990s, and the 2000s. Today, SIP's membership have tripled that of its numbers in the early 2000s. Over 1/3 of SIP's membership are affiliate members with qualifications from the allied professions. This reflects the multidisciplinary nature of planning and the interests of allied professionals in urban planning. Due to the constraint of time here, I would like to highlight just 8 milestones achieved in SIP over the years. I believe these 8 milestones will continue to help build SIP to be a stronger institute going forward. The first milestone, the Urban Planning Foundation course, or UPFC. The UPFC was first launched in 2016 to facilitate the advancement of SIP's affiliate members to full member status. The second edition of the UPFC was conducted in 2018, and the third UPFC edition was conducted last year. The second milestone, continuing professional development of SIP members. In 2017, SIP formalized its CPD framework to award CPD points to members who attend approved CPD programs, and to maintain a register to track if members meet their CPD point requirements for the year. To help expand its CPD offerings, SIP also collaborated with external CPD providers like CLC, URA, HDB, JDC, and the Institute of Higher Learnings, as well as planning institutes from overseas. This year, 2022, will be the 5th year in 8 to recognize excellence in planning. The competition is held once every 2 years, and the 7th SIP Planning Awards was held last year, 2021, which we received 93 entries from both Singapore and overseas, a record number compared to previous years. The fourth milestone, going digital. SIP launched its revamped website in 2018, and the online membership application and approval portal was incorporated into the website in 2019. In the same year, a personalized SIP member dashboard account was launched for each member to view their own CPD records, as well as for them to update their particulars on the portal. In 2020, thanks to the pandemic and the safety restrictions imposed, SIP was kind of forced to push using video conferencing platforms for its online seminars and events. But fortunately, through that, this has helped SIP to widen our reach to our members within Singapore and also to our planning fraternity overseas. The fifth milestone, which is the collaboration with overseas planning institutes. So within the last 3 years, 4 MOUs were signed with various planning institutes in the region to collaborate in organizing joint seminars for the mutual benefit of our members. The MOUs were signed with the Hong Kong Institute of Planners, the City Planning Institute of Japan, the Malaysian Institute of Planners, and the Hong Kong Institute of Surveyors Planning and Development Division. So SIP members can also earn CPD points for attending these joint seminars. The sixth milestone, the Planning Consultancy Project for URA. The Urban Planning and Urban Design Consultancy Project for the Paya Lebar Air Base, or PLAB for short, is a joint SIP-SIA consultancy engagement by URA. It was first initiated by former Minister of National Development, Mr. Lawrence Wong. Representing SIP in the project are 8 SIP urban planners and 4 SIP urban designers. They were engaged in 2 separate joint SIP-SIA teams for the consultancy project. One consultancy firm with SIP members was also engaged as the design delivery production team to assist one of the joint teams. 12 other SIP members from the wider SIP membership also participated in the ideation workshops for the PLAB. SIP looks forward to more opportunities for its members to be engaged in consultancy projects with URA and perhaps other statutory boards in the future. The seventh milestone is the engagement of SIP members in overseas planning projects. From the 1960s through the 1980s, SIP members from the public and private sectors were involved mostly in planning and design work in Singapore during the country's nation-building years. From the 1990s onwards, SIP members in the private sector began to venture overseas for various planning work engagements. Some were engaged in projects in Southeast Asia, others ventured further to China, India, and the Middle East, and a few even farther to Africa, Central Asia, and even Latin America. As Singapore became better known as a living lab for planning, urban planning, more foreign firms offering planning services started to see the benefit of setting up shop in Singapore, especially in the last 2 decades. Which brings me to the 8th milestone, the certification of planners. To protect the reputation and value of the Singapore brand of planning, it was necessary to ensure that planning practitioners who market themselves as planners with a Singapore experience had adequate knowledge of the principles and values of the planning adopted in Singapore. This was reinforced by majority of SIP members and industry players polled through the joint Design Singapore's SIP survey, which was conducted in 2018. From the survey, certification of planners was regarded as one of the top priorities to be included in SIP's 3-year industry transformation roadmap and plan. Following that, SIP consulted the Royal Town Planning Institute of the UK, and American Planning Association and American Institute of Certified Planners of the USA to learn from them their respective experiences in developing their certification processes and for the funding of SIP's Certification of Planners program. With this, SIP was given the green light to organize the inaugural meeting of the SICP Advisory Panel on 1st October 2021. The SICP Advisory Panel is chaired by Chief Planner of URA, Ms. Huang Yuning, and its members comprise senior directors from the URA, HDB, and JTC, as well as senior management representatives from one large private sector firm and one SME firm with the most SIP members in their firms. Also represented in the SICP AP are the heads of the NUS, MUP, and MAUD programs. The incumbent SIP president and immediate past president and 2 other representatives from the SIP membership are also in the panel. SIP members can look forward to the announcement of the details of the Certification of Planners course in the latter half of this year. In conclusion, let me recount that 50 years ago, a group of like-minded planners in Singapore founded SIP to nurture the urban planning profession and to promote best practices in planning for the benefit of our community. Over the following 5 decades thereafter, each cohort of planners in Singapore built upon that foundation to strengthen the Institute. It is my hope that the young planners in the fraternity will embrace SIP's legacy and continue to hold the torch up high for generations to come. I wish SIP and all its members a very happy 50th anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilfred. Wow, that sounds like quite a bit of an achievement in half a century. Okay, next, we'd like to welcome Minister of National Development and Minister in charge of Social Service Integration, Mr. Desmond Lee, to share a few words with us. Minister, please.
Could all step outdoors and remove our masks. But this is the conundrum, you see, of this day and age. If you plan for a large-scale event, you need such a long runway that you never know what's around the corner. But you have an intimate affair like this, and I'm certainly looking forward to the panel discussion with pioneer members of the Institute and listening to their recounting of the history session, and so I'll try to be brief. Mr. Wilfred Lu, President of the Singapore Institute of Planners, Dr. Cheong Koon Hian, Chairman of CLC, Mr. Lim Eng Hui, Chief Executive of URA, distinguished SIP members, planners who are joining us online, both locally and overseas, ladies and gentlemen, a very, very good evening to all of you. And let me begin by congratulating the Singapore Institute of Planners on your 50th anniversary. And I'm honored and humbled to be invited to this special occasion. Now, as we celebrate this milestone, allow me to spend some time reflecting on the past and looking into the future of urban planning here in Singapore. Now, today, Singapore is a thriving city-state with towns planned well, with quality housing, with amenities and community facilities, with green and blue spaces close by. But things were very different in the past. Right after independence, many people still lived in villages and overcrowded squatters without proper sanitation, clean water, and electricity, and faced a constant threat of fires and floods. My father never fails to remind me of that. Over dinner, family events, talking about how things have changed. Our pioneers had to quickly build homes to meet our people's basic needs while dealing with very significant limitations. Unlike bigger countries, Singapore is the only city that we have, and we cannot afford to fail. We cannot spread our bets across different cities. So early on, we realized that good urban planning was vital. And our planners also had to take into account our young nation's economic strategy and goals. For instance, we capitalized on our location along the Straits of Malacca and our deep waters that made excellent harbors. And by investing heavily in infrastructure to support our maritime industry, we brought in jobs and trade to grow our fledgling economy. And despite facing immediate, pressing challenges, our pioneers took a long-term view. Very early on, they safeguarded land for an island-wide expressway system and MRT networks so that the towns we were rapidly building could be well connected. Our pioneers also made some bold moves that were considered risky and uncertain at the time. One classic example, recounted time and time again, was the decision to move our airport from Paya Lebar to Changi. I was recently in Jakarta, first time traveling after 2 years, and coming back to an airport that was beginning to bustle with life. The benefits seem obvious today on hindsight. Height restrictions could be lifted, noise pollution reduced, improving the living environment in Geylang and Katong. But back then, this was a risky decision, and you listen to the oral history of our early planners, and they'll tell you it was so. Because Paya Lebar Airport was already doing well then. Other decisions that proved far-sighted by our planners included the location of petrochemical plants on Jurong Island, safely distanced away from populated areas, as well as spending significant resources to reclaim land to augment our limited land supply. Today, while we continue to adopt this forward-looking, future-focused planning philosophy, we must also adapt to fast-changing circumstances and challenges. Technology continues to drive new economic opportunities, so we must be nimble in our land use to capture potential growth. And yet, as Singapore becomes increasingly built up, we will also face greater constraints and more stark trade-offs among competing land users. And we must continue to weigh these trade-offs carefully. Circumstances aside, Singaporeans have also changed. Today, many want to have a larger say in what Singapore will become. Planners of the future must adapt to this, and your MC, Shu Ying, is masterful in this. Most of you would not know that, but she helmed many of the engagements leading up to the announcement of the master planning of the Ulu Pandan area, amongst many others, and the dexterity and skill with which she managed competing interests and concerns, bringing them together, even though voices are diverse. I think it's a skill set that planners today have in their toolkit to their credit. Now, urban planning cannot be a solely top-down process where a planner sits in the office, draws out what he or she thinks is best before executing it unilaterally. Instead, public engagement must be central to the planning process, not just within government, but with the public, with NGOs, with corporates, and with communities. The final design and decision must incorporate the aspirations and values of all relevant stakeholders. So we increasingly must build that into the runway, into our timelines. Engagement must also, as far as possible, take place upstream before key parameters are fixed and plans set in motion. And that is why government has strived to take an even more people-centric approach in our city planning. And I must say, we are still learning. We are still learning. For instance, while we have a long history of carefully conserving our built and natural heritage, in recent years, we have deliberately engaged nature and heritage communities a lot more extensively. While this takes more time and resources, I think it translates into better outcomes. And it gives Singaporeans the opportunity to play a real and significant part in shaping the city where they live. To illustrate, as part of URA's long-term plan review, or LTPR, we have been engaging more widely and meaningfully than before. Since July last year, we have reached out to over 15,000 Singaporeans from all walks of life on our plans for the future of our island over the next 50 years and beyond. And this citizen-centric approach has begun to yield rewards for our planners. By listening more intently to Singaporeans' aspirations for the future, providing platforms for diverse sentiments and aspirations to come into the same room so that Singaporeans with different wants and different asks can listen to each other and navigate trade-offs among each other. We can, in response, having studied this for some time, we will strengthen our heritage evaluation processes and introduce more avenues for public feedback and consultation. We recently announced that we will implement a structured HIA, or Heritage Impact Assessment framework. Under this new framework, whenever a public project is likely to significantly impact an important heritage site, the managing agency will need to consult with URA and NHB in detail to determine if a heritage study or other measures are required to mitigate the impact of the development. Public consultation will be central to this. We will engage stakeholders and the wider public more deeply and broadly and seek their feedback. But we ourselves have to build skill sets and to grow the relationships of trust that will enable that to be genuine, deep, and concerted. External consultants will also come in to provide additional assessments. Now, all of this will supplement our existing planning processes, and we hope that this will help us better safeguard our built heritage and help foster a strong sense of identity and belonging for all Singaporeans. Having said that, we are still learning on this journey. Now, as the long-term plan review engagement has shown, both planners and people must be at the heart of our urban planning. And in this regard, SIP's contributions have been very significant. SIP plays a vital role in nurturing talent and promoting excellence in urban and regional planning. Besides providing professional training, SIP also strengthens networks and relationships between planners, as well as with stakeholders across allied disciplines. This is important in maintaining the vibrancy of the planning profession. Looking back to the past, it is clear that SIP members have contributed tremendously to shaping the Singapore that we live in today. Take, for instance, Mr. Alan Cho, the founding Vice President of SIP. As a very young member of the MND family, some years ago I met Mr. Alan Cho, very unassuming, but a giant of a man, Besides being the first architect planner at HDB and then the first general manager of the Urban Renewal Authority, Mr. Cho also oversaw the transformation of Sentosa from a former military island into a major tourist attraction. Mr. Liu Tai Ke, who was previously CEO of HDB and URA, he was also one of the council members when the SIP was founded in that same year. And I'm confident SIP will continue to play a crucial role in planning for the future of our city. For instance, SIP and the Singapore Institute of Architects are working with URA to develop concept master plans for the future of the Paya Lebar Air Base area, as Wilfred had described earlier. One interesting idea that has been raised is to create a heritage district out of the cluster of old airport buildings, such as the control tower and hangars. Others also suggested making the Paya Lebar Air Base area a happiness project, with urban design that promotes community bonding and well-integrated blue and green spaces that can improve residents' well-being. The urban design teams are now fleshing out plans to give us a glimpse of what this area could potentially look like in the future. I'm sure we all look forward to the findings being shared with the public later this year so that we can work with Singaporeans to create the future together. Apart from this project, I'm glad that SIP is developing a formal accreditation program to push the industry forward. Enterprise Singapore is fully supporting this program. Our planning agencies like URA and JTC have also contributed members to your accreditation panel, which will help you develop this program. Design Singapore and our agencies' in-house training institutes will also support SIP's development of relevant courses. Government will continue to work with SIP and other like-minded partners to build up the capabilities of our planners and further enhance Singapore's global reputation for excellence in urban planning. Allow me to conclude. Over the years, each generation of planners has worked closely with Singaporeans to continually create, rejuvenate, and reimagine our city. And while the years ahead will present new challenges, they will also bring exciting new ideas and technologies, opportunities for us to rejuvenate and refresh our city sustainably for many future generations of Singaporeans. And if we put our minds to it, consult widely with Singaporeans. If we are bold and creative, yet disciplined and rigorous in our urban planning as we've always been, then I'm confident that just as our pioneers did some 50 years ago, we too can ensure that 50 years from now and beyond, despite tremendous challenges like climate change, geopolitical tensions and all, our Singapore will remain a great place to live, work and play. So I wish all of you good health, and once again, congratulations and best wishes to the SIP on your 50th anniversary. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Minister. Yes, we will learn to be bold, creative, disciplined, and rigorous, and consult more. Next, we have come to the main agenda for tonight. Since it's SIP's 50th anniversary, what is more befitting than to have a few experienced planners from the different cohorts to share their story and perspective over a panel discussion. So may I, without further ado, let's welcome the beautiful ladies who are moderating this panel, SIP Vice President, Ms. Nina Yang. Nina Yang, please. Nina is the Chief Executive Officer of SJ City Global, Sabana Jurong Private Limited. SJ City Global provides end-to-end urban solutions and undertakes the development management of large-scale urbanization projects. She is currently involved in townships, industrial park, and airport city in China, Vietnam, Kazakhstan, and Australia. Prior to joining SJ, Nina was Ascendas Singbridge ASB, Chief Executive Officer for Sustainable Urban Development. The notable projects in the portfolio she managed were the Sino-Singapore Guangzhou Knowledge City, Sino-Singapore Chengdu Innovation Park, Sino-Singapore Tianjin Eco-City, and Amaravati Capital City. Before joining ASB, Nina spent 25 years practicing architecture, urban planning, and environmental design in Singapore, China, India, UAE, Vietnam, and Myanmar. She led a consortium to assist the Myanmar government in the economic positioning, master planning, and investment portfolio promotion of the Kwai Yap Yu Deep Sea Port and special economic zone. She was actively involved in the ABC water programs, transforming the waterways of Singapore. She was also based in China for 2 years to set up offices in Shanghai and Suzhou. Nina graduated from Harvard University with a master's in design studies in real estate finance and urban development. She holds a Bachelor of Architecture honors degree and a Bachelor of Arts degree from the National University of Singapore. She's a registered architect and with Boards of Architects Singapore. She is the Vice President of the Singapore Institute of Planners and co-chair of the Sustainable Product Council of the Urban Land Institute. She's also board member of Singapore Science Centre. Next, we'll welcome our panelists on board. Okay, let me go to the panelist list. Okay. Yeah. Nina, you need to receive the panelists. Okay, shall we welcome our panelists, Mr. Derek Chick, Ms. Chan Hui Min, and Mr. Wee Chiu Heng, and Mr. Tan Shi Tiong to be seated. Well, you can take your time to be seated. I have a long list of your accreditation to read out. Okay, Mr. Wee Chiu Heng. Mr. Wee is a pioneer architect and urban planner who served on several planning committees of DGPs and statutory board. He has great interest and is a supporter of the arts in Southeast Asia. He was member of Singapore Polytechnic Board, SAM, and NUS Museum, Vice President of SIA and Council of SIP, as well as partner of Kumpulan Architects. In the DGP for Changi and Loyang Bay, a resort-style HDB township and vibrant projects for public and private partnership was proposed, together with creation of alternative housing types to encourage imaginative innovation and enterprise for individual and social developments like media and cyber, as well as many artistic industries. In the DGP for Marina East, seamless extension of CBD was proposed, with clustering planning of buildings around central services for parking substations, central cooling towers, and network of pedestrian links. Cul-de-sac planning minimize through traffic across the site and provide more areas of communal use and landscaping. Clusters of towers will give distinctive character and skyline instead of park rows and rows. Mr. Wee is of the opinion that future urban development should concentrate in the southern coast belt from Changi to Pasir Panjang with high density, high intensity, and high quality integrated development. This will limit all movement and transportation within the belt to save time and convenience instead of more new towns all over the island. He believes that this is the opportune time for implementing new and bold concepts in strategic planning for the next few years. Next, we have Mr. Tan Shi Tiong. Mr. Tan is a chartered architect and town planner with 48 years of practical experience, as well as an architect, urban designer, and urban planner in Singapore, China, UK, the Middle East, India, and ASEAN. He has won international urban design master planning competitions in Beijing, Tianjin, and Hainan. Most recent competition being Haikou Jiangdong New District Master Plan, where he was shortlisted among 162 international firms. He has also been regularly invited by Chinese cities to adjudicate international planning and urban design competitions. Currently, he is international expert advisor to planning authorities in Yunnan and Hainan province. He has also trained no less than 150 groups of Chinese officials on planning and governance in Singapore in the past 15 years. Mr. Tan has been active in SIP Council for over 30 years and served as president from 2001 to 2003. He was instrumental in the setting up of the SIP Planning Award and served as Deputy Chief Judge in the inaugural award and in the preparation of the United Nations Climate Change Conference and Commonwealth Association of Planners Conference in Singapore. He also organized and chaired the widely publicized SIP Population Forum in 2013. In 2015, he received the Singapore Golden Jubilee Design Award from the government and the Pioneer Award from SIP. He was featured as a distinguished alumni in the book NUS 115, celebrating 115 years of shaping the future. Next, we have another beautiful lady, Ms. Chan Hui Min. Ms. Chan is director of DP Architect. Trained as an architect, her career spans multiple disciplines to include architecture, urban planning, and new media design. Her broad design experience formed the foundation of a passion in innovation and advocacy of sustainable design practices. She currently leads the firm's effort in design technology research and digital twin adoption. She is the founder of DP Urban, a subsidiary of DP Architects, focused on urban planning and infrastructure design services. She also spearheaded DP Architects business in Turkey and the CIS, leading to the founding of the Turkey branch in 2016. Her notable architectural project credits include Emmak Square in Istanbul and is currently working on the urban regeneration of historic Tasnia Istanbul Shipyard on the Golden Horn. Her other key project credits in Singapore includes Wood Square, a catalytic commercial development for Woodlands Regional Centre, and Orchard Road Business Study, and the redevelopment master plan of Alexandra Hospital. Other overseas projects include Safe Lucelle, a major waterfront master plan in Qatar, and the urban redevelopment master plan of Okmiyadani in downtown Istanbul. Challenging. Okay, next I have my fellow colleague, Derek Chick. Derek is currently Deputy Director, Sustainable Urban Future Studio at the Housing and Development Board Research and Planning Group. The team undertakes the comprehensive master planning of new growth area and conducts planning and urban design studies to guide development of HDB towns. He has worked on local town planning projects of varying scale over the years, which range from strategic and long-term concept plans to localized projects for implementation. Projects in which he has played a key role includes the master planning of Punggol Town, Tampines North, and Tengah Town. He holds a Master of Architecture from the National University of Singapore and recently completed a Master of Urban and Regional Planning from the University of Sydney. Okay, without further ado, over to you, Nina.
I'm going to take out my mask. I used to say that we can plan city, we can plan town, but we can't plan an event properly.
Yes.
especially in this current pandemic, the SMS keep changing, SMM keeps changing. Yeah, so it's always very challenging planning event. But anyway, yeah, I think thank you. I'm so happy to see physical people. Yeah, finally, and in this nice environment. I think there's a introduction done. So I just want to do a bit of something different to break the ice a little bit, so to get people a bit more active. I'm just going to do this rapid fire rounds. I'm going to ask all of you a few questions, and just give me a single word or phrase answer. Anything that comes to your mind immediately, just give me the answer, okay? So, first question I'm going to ask, okay? Who comes to your mind as the person who is instrumental to you choosing planning as a career? Maybe I'll ask Derek to start first.
I would say that it's not a single person, but the entire HDB family. I know it's very, yeah, but it's true.
Promotion. Chui Heng? Sorry, what? All the bosses here.
I and a few group of active students formed the first planning activist group called SPUR.
Oh.
Singapore Planning Urban Research Group. It was a bunch of students who we said we can always give second opinion to the government. And therefore we were very bold and brave, and we used to write letters to the press. And so I think that's what made me develop my
So the
interest in
cohort
planning.
that you're in,
Yes.
that's 1963,
Yes,
is
this
it?
yes,
1963, yeah?
1963.
What about one answer? Don't give me a long story. I just want one answer.
Okay, it's on, right?
The person or
Surprisingly, that person is Mr. Liu Taiker.
event?
The story being, I was doing architecture and I picked a thesis that is not architecture. My thesis is playground and play things.
Okay, don't tell us about your thesis.
Okay.
Okay, I will come back to you. Hui Min?
I will name two people, if it's allowed. One is Mr. Chan Swee Him. He got me into planning. And Mrs. Koh Wen Jin. Koh Lim Wen Jin, yeah.
I see. Okay, yeah, I know. Yeah, Mr. Chan. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Second question. What is this mic is not working. What is the most memorable planned, or even better, unplanned projects that you have ever visited? Yeah. Planned or even unplanned. Like I would say Kowloon Sing, the Kowloon City, you know. Yeah. You have one? Your favorite planned or unplanned project? Can I look at you?
I have to say New York City.
New York
Other
City.
than Singapore, which is always going to be my favorite. Second is New York.
Yeah, in that too.
I'm always a conservation buff. I think those in URA remembered. I came back after 6 years in UK studying and working, and I wrote a long article for the SIP journal about en-bloc conservation, why Singapore are not doing it, and we are only conserving monuments, single monument. So that article was picked up. But the vision plan was born. In 1989, I wrote the article in 1984. Okay, so this is another story.
What is the project? Your cash.
Yeah, okay. So my dearest project are actually conservation projects.
Okay, any consideration?
Whatever URA has done, I gave full support. I think those in URA long enough, of course, you know, Yuning was also involved. Yeah, knew that I was in full support, and I organized the first SIP conservation forum. Yeah, with the URA GM and all that
Wait lah,
around 1989.
I asked for the project.
Just to push for that.
Okay.
So the project is the whole of Singapore conserved area is my favorite.
Yay. Okay, Chui Heng, the most memorable project.
Yes,
that
I
you-
think on my first trip to Europe, the most inspiring place and city is no doubt Venice. And at that time, we were talking about no cars. I mean, it's a car-like city, a pedestrian city that started 500 years ago. And the fact that as a harbor, it became the center of Europe. Venice was so inspiring, and it's still so today, although it's sinking slowly. I think that's my very favorite city that all of you must visit before you die.
Okay, Derek, I give you time to think. So,
Mine's very fast. So I think, like Hui Min shared, I think that New York is really amazing. So projects like the High Line, Hudson Yards, and actually all the revitalization projects like Cheonggyecheon River in Korea, that's amazing. I think.
yeah, sure. Not. Okay, we know that planning is, you're always planning for the future, right? It's a long profile, right? So I want to ask you, what is the longest planning project you have done? And what is the project duration? You want to start? Yeah.
No,
Longest duration.
I
It can be
suppose-
the longest, yeah.
I've accepted the fact that planning takes so many years to mature and to develop. And it makes me feel very old, but I'm harping back on the days when we first had to handle a planning thing. In those days, I mean, everybody's starting from scratch. So I think we were hoping at that time, our vision is to transform Orchard Road. And at that time, the first minister who responded to us was at the opening of the Ming Court Hotel. And we persuaded him to allow us to merge two land parcels with a canal in between and let us use the air rights. Now that was, and the secret was we told him we could do this without having to destroy the canal. All we did was to put precast planking throughout the whole thing. And that was why it was feasible to do. And that was amazing.
Okay. Shi Tiong, is there a very long planning project that you...
Planning or non-planning? Planning, is it?
Okay, whichever way you want
Okay,
to take
it's
it.
actually a more urban design project,
Yeah.
which I won and first prize in international competition for Beijing Sports Hub. That was prior to 2008 Olympic. Around 2006 or 05, they organized a competition in the Longtanghu. Those who know Beijing, is right next to the Heavenly Temple. It's the south of the Imperial Palace, or rather southeast of it. So it was a very simple thing. Just to convert, the famous architect Liang Shicheng did the design for the Longtanghu, and it's so sacred that you should not touch anything on it. But on the other hand, the Beijing Sports Council is there. It's a whole area of old hutong, courtyard houses, so run down. So they want to catch up with the Olympic to project a new image. So they hold an international competition. So I have very little staff in China, only about 5 of us. We worked on it just for a couple of months, and we won first prize. Beating people like Philip Cox of Australia. They separate the two. They are impossible to communicate. Okay, so I put a mount over it. And they said, you cannot stop the train running. Every day got so much passenger. No way we can stop. The train must keep running, whatever you are doing. So we create a mount over it so people can walk across, and the two sides are connected into one with all the sports facilities and so on. And you know what Philip Cox provided? A monorail running the site, just like Darling Harbour, How can you do a monorail next to the Heavenly Temple? So it was heavily criticized by the Chinese official, and they praised, how could a Singaporean never live in Beijing could understand our culture so well? About the Chinese, of course I talk about feng shui, axis and all that. Because being a Chinese educated, up to A levels, so I was able to present it in that way. So I think this is my most memorable, but it takes the longest time to materialize.
Yes.
Chinese, when they award to a foreign consultant, they have to get a local consultant to modify your plan, modify until you can't recognize it. Until you recognize it. So for the people for the 老百姓, they can swallow it. Okay, this is our work. This is Beijing 30 years work. Okay, and it went on and on. Today is about 17 years later. I saw very little being built, but at least it was a real project and it has started. I don't know what was the reason for the delay. So this is my longest project.
Great, great. Thanks.
I would like to give a tongue-in-cheek response to that. It was not necessarily a long project by common planning standards, but it felt long. So there's this project, not painful, but it's a very good lesson, so to speak. So we were working on Seafloor Sale. It was urban design, planning and urban design project in kind of where meet my own guidelines. I had to be part of the team as the architectural team to comply to the guidelines that we wrote. That felt long. That felt really long.
I think my personal experience was we did urban design guidelines for Chinese residential project. And then you realize that Chinese residential project, they have this sun angle, right? 日照间距, right? Then you say, high control here, lah, this and that. Lah. Then you really, when you're designing it as an architect, you cannot meet the high control, you cannot meet the bulk ratio, and you get blamed by your developer, you know? Yeah.
I would say that it is the Tengah Master Planning. So of course, under the leadership of then CEO Dr. Chong, we started really early in 2012, all the way until it was finally publicly exhibited in 2016. And even after that, there was still follow-up. So yeah.
Which master plan is it?
For the Tengah Master Plan.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, my two more questions. This one will be very fast. Other than Singapore, which city will you choose to live in? I think some of you answered. Other than Singapore, which city will you choose to live in? New York, right? For you? China? No, Suzhou, Shanghai. China lah. Well, which city? Xiamen. Yeah. Xiamen.
No, I would live somewhere in Yunnan.
Oh,
Beautiful landscape.
yeah, I think so.
Heaven
Yeah.
on earth.
Lijiang, you know, actually I love Lijiang.
Lijiang a bit touristy.
Yeah lah.
Yeah,
In
a
the
bit touristy.
2006, I love Lijiang in 2006.
Yeah, you know China has a very rare species of bird called black-neck crane. 黑颈鹤 is somewhere near
香格里拉。
惠泽, the north of that beautiful.
Yeah,
I would like to
I think
live
so.
there with the birds.
Venice, for you?
I will choose New York because
Still
I
New
always
York.
regard it as the sort of the ultimate city where everything happens. And we can learn the lesson from New York because for senior citizens, they don't have to travel very far. They just go down the elevator, come down, and everything within walking distance. It's so efficient, the city. And it is, every street is done by trade, by certain street, this for fashion, this for utilities, this for restaurants. It is so organized. And it is a wonder, I think, how New York could operate with this huge 10, 15 million population in a very efficient manner. And
Very
if you know where to go,
imaginable.
it's also very livable. Yes.
I think personally I would
Tengah.
choose. No lah. I would choose Tokyo. I like Tokyo, so I like the vibrancy of the place, and of course, you know, the very strong identity that the districts have. Yes, but that's more of a personal choice.
Okay, one more fun question. If you cannot be a planner, what will you choose to be?
It doesn't have to be realistic, right?
Yeah. What is your second life, you know? What would
My
you?
second life, astronaut.
Whoa!
Frontier.
Yeah. Sit down.
I would like to be an orchestral conductor.
But still, you know, still planner, right?
No, I'm afraid I cannot do anything else
Other
but
than-
architecture. Because, I mean, I believe it's in my blood because I really harness it from young. And this was one of the gifts that I think I must be very thankful for. And I encourage all children to decide on their career at that age because then you'll naturally go into it. Don't be anything else. If I'm not an architect, I cannot be a planner. So.
Yeah. Derek?
My second choice back then was actually dentistry. So I'm really glad that I got into architecture and planning.
Yeah.
Nina, you didn't give me a chance to elaborate. You just skip my
Somebody
answer.
show me 30
okay.
minutes already.
I have to explain why I choose orchestra conducting. You know?
Okay, please.
Okay. First, well, my wife is a musician. Okay, my kids are very talented. Of course, I won the first traveling scholarship. I went to England, found a job, worked there, and you know what I did at the sideline? I went to attend a orchestra conducting course from Guildhall in London. For 6 months, I was learning orchestra conducting. That's my second love. Anyway, yeah. Okay.
My is stage lighting.
Very good.
I used to love stage lighting. Yeah,
Very
theater
good.
work, theater works. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay. Okay. Now I go to the more serious planning type of questions. Yeah. I think I just like to start by saying that planning is actually an outcome of geopolitics, economics, social and culture, context of a location. In fact, a lot of us learn that you cannot do a planning presentation without starting with an analysis of those factors. Yeah, which is what makes planning so intriguing. And of course, thanks to the regionalization effort of Singapore in the last decades, the planners like us have chance to have a very rewarding career outside Singapore. I think starting with China. Yeah, so I'm actually going to come to you. You know, we have seen China through 5 waves of urbanization, starting from industrialization, first wave, with Suzhou Industrial Park being that era. Then coming into second wave is connectivity, which is the era of high-speed rail, trying to balance between the inland cities and the coastal cities. Then the third wave is the wave of social harmony, 和谐社会. It is about harmonization between rural areas and urban areas, right? And then your fourth wave is innovation. Why? Because they're trying to create jobs for 7 million of graduates from the university every year. And today's wave is actually the dual economy, right? And then as a result of US and China tension. Yeah, so I think under this context, you know, planners like Singaporean place planners actually have a chance to be actually immersed in that transformation. And I'd like to ask Chee Tiong, because you obviously have spent a lot of time in China. What are the highlights there? And then has your planning perspective changed over the years, you know, following through that wave of transformation?
Yeah, I think you break down the 5 phases is quite appropriate. Yeah, of course, historically, it goes beyond Suzhou Industrial Park. You know, from the Soviet time, the Soviet style of master planning to today, quite a bit of participatory planning is being practiced in China. So I'm happy to see China development, not through the influence of Singapore. Besides, I think I was the pioneer, the first one to enter China and work as a planner in 1992. Okay, I think this is way before Liu Taike. Okay, so I have seen the development. Singapore do contribute a lot. They do look up to Singapore, you know, for our basically clean and efficient government. You know, I tell you a story which is very, very touching. Just about 2013, okay, I happened to be in Singapore. At that time, I finished my job in Suzhou for a year. I came back working for SCP, and came back, and I was doing a lot of teaching of the Chinese officials and party cadres in Singapore, you know. One group from Yunnan came, led by the planning department of Planning Bureau Chief of Qujing, is the 2nd largest city in Yunnan. Led the team here. I didn't know. I just teach as usual and so on. When they went back, and then this bureau chief gave me a letter. It was so touching. He said, we learned so much about it. And we learned about corruption. I said, I teach planning. Where do you learn about corruption? You said you forgot your last slides. You quoted then UNESCO, I think the head, she was the Helen Clark, she was the New Zealand Prime Minister. She came to Singapore, She said, despite Singapore progress and all that, but if the government is corrupted, nothing can go forward. I use that as my closing remark to all my lectures to Chinese officials. He remembered that. And then he went back, you know what he did? He cleaned up the whole development process in Chujing. And he got threat from developer because there were a lot of illegal approval and construction. He got threat. They're going to kill him, not one. At least 5 developers want to kill him. He moved to stay in the Wujing military police quarters for years. The whole family moved there because it's under threat, because he pulled down all those illegal structures. Okay? And he was only 38 years old. Few years later, I heard that he was promoted to Yunnan Provincial Guihua Tingzang. In his early 40s, all the way promoted up. Okay, so he kept telling me every time I met up, he appointed me as an international advisor. Okay, so I'm very grateful. Our Singapore firm belief in clean and honest government, and in all governance and planning, we do the right thing, has actually influenced a young planner. He was the deputy chief of a Yunnan Shen Guihua Yan, and then joined the politician, and then rise to the thing. I think the next thing I will see him to go to central government. I hope, they will be successful to Xi Jinping and all that. So I think as planner, I think this is most gratifying, that you see that people not just taking your planning technicality, but the very, very core concept of planning is a clean government and efficient government, and try to implement and replicate that in China. Yeah, that's most touching.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. What about Hui Min? I mean, you're obviously doing us proud in the non-Chinese speaking world, in the a lot in Istanbul, Turkey, right? Turkey and Qatar, and actually quite exposed to yet another quite different side of the world. Yeah, and probably where the social and cultural context is quite different. Yeah, so maybe you can share, how has that shaped your planning perspectives? Yeah.
So the more different the culture that you go into, the first place to try to understand them is to find commonalities. And actually in Turkey, they are very much like Singapore, because they are also in the middle of the East and the West, and the Turkish nationals see themselves as Asians but European, and also they have been a trading hub for much longer than Singapore has ever existed, and that is always the first thing I say when I try to bring them to my side, so to speak. We find commonalities. And when you start to look at their challenges, their point in the economic development and how they make money, these commonalities help because the values are similar. They want to make peace. Case in point now, Erdogan is trying to be the peacemaker. They always find this balance, the compromise, and that particular, and what I learned from them, actually I learned from them how to negotiate, being on the bad side a lot. So that point then helps me as a planner try to fulfill their dreams, because ultimately the plan you make is to fulfill their dreams and their vision. And looking at them and what capabilities or you would say, somebody coming from a young country like Singapore, what have you got to teach us in Turkey? But surprisingly, they are always looking for us. They're always asking for, us to share something. And for somebody with a very small, young startup company, I've been invited to the real estate conference not once but twice, massive ones. Because Singapore is such a shining example of good planning, that you've planned it and you've actually done it. And always at the forefront of the next. You almost can see the next thing that's going to happen in the world. And that's what they are always aspiring to. Yeah. So that's what I want to share.
Yeah. some of the earlier experience was really, especially in China, is about, you know, give me your new ideas. But actually more nowadays, a lot of people come to Singapore because we can execute a master plan. They are very interested in the way we execute the master plan. Yeah.
Coming back to Singapore after all these
your
ventures,
55 DGP time, right?
No, not really. I want to just pay tribute to our heroes and our pioneers who really started it all, because I had the opportunity to see what happened. And I must say that in those days, after the Singapore joined the United Nations, we got the benefit of a UNDP planner who came to Singapore, who with the task of doing the master plan for the whole of Singapore, and that's why we should be grateful. And my first experience encounter with planning was when I heard the state and city planning grand plan for the whole of Singapore is to this ring city. They want all the satellite towns around the central area as compared to the coastal areas where transporting is more difficult. And it was this grand plan that actually was implemented when HDB was born, so that they can handle all the satellite towns. And the real hero that I must respect is Dr. Goh Keng Swee, because I think that man almost single-handedly made a lot of these things happen. Although I thought planning department was in the Prime Minister's office in those days, but planning was never talked about because it is just in the back room of the Prime Minister's office. But Dr. Goh Keng Swee launched the Grand Jurong project, and everybody thought it was a folly because it was converting the swamp into the city center. And I remember that sort of the people who came to visit Jurong would, so I admire the fact that this dream town has happened, that the first few multinationals were here to create the employment and the industrialization program for Singapore. And when you describe all these lessons of planning, it just gives me this nostalgia that how we started, that's the way we started, you know. And the great idea of bringing resources and finance to build the city, to transform the city, is when he suggested that if we become the financial center, we can create this flow of currency in Singapore, and started sale of land. And at that time, quite a lot of the Central Business District land lease has reached its 99 years, and the government can take it all back. And he amalgamated all these small plots into big plots and invite the world's developers to tender. That's how we have a URA, and that's how we have the Marina East and Marina South, and then the conservation areas in the Golden Shoe area. So all these things happen every sort of very fast pace. Within 5 years, within 10 years, you see the result. And this is really incredible for anybody to see. Besides our satellite towns forming, we see the transformation in reality. And we had the opportunity at the time to meet all these big names. And then we had I.M. Pei in town, you know. We had all these people who come and give us the world profile. And that's why I think Singapore managed to be in the radar, in the limelight of every small city who have never even heard of it. I think this is something we should be grateful for, and it's our anniversary. And I think just think back that's how it all started.
Yeah, I always remember the Jurong Bird Park, Bird Park story, that we don't have the sensor and all that. So Jurong Bird Park was created, right? Is it true? That
yes,
it's to tell us early warning whether there is pollution, too much pollution.
No, but I think he needed that. He must remember at that time when we wanted to lure the Japanese industries here, he created the Japanese garden. You know what I mean? I mean, this is all part of the strategy where he could bring in the people and the names. And when he wanted to do a cultural city, he started the Singapore Symphony Orchestra. And all these sound very unlikely, but that man single-handedly do it. And the most telling thing recently was revealed by the Monetary Authority, who celebrated their 50th year. And they mentioned the fact that this great achievement, that why Singapore's success is because this financial management was done by MAS and GIC. And he mentioned, the report mentioned the fact that Keng Swee carried on the personal correspondence with the Chancellor of United Kingdom regarding the break away from the sterling. And they were very upset with Singapore because we are holding the money currency, and we started shifting it to US currency and Japanese yen and all these sort of things. And when he came to Singapore to make an appeal to LKY, that why we are doing this, or ignoring it, and LKY had to defend Goh Keng Swee. This is published in the letter in the MAS report. I was quite stunned to read this letter, the personal letters between Keng Swee and the the Chancellor of the United Kingdom. And LKY just told him that he could not withdraw this because Keng Swee, already did it and committed himself and going to do it. And we carried on doing break our currency away from the sterling method and become 10 times the size. It's very unforgettable, that man.
Lovely to hear stories like that.
Yes,
and
it's
planning really
incredible.
touches different parts of the,
That's why
touches
we have the
different part of
money.
our-
That's how we can build, we can transform, So industrialization and how to bring the money, and the fact that it's a financial center.
Okay, fast forwards
Yes.
50 years
Uh,
to today
think-
HDB. I think you are in the sustainability studio, right? Yeah, maybe you can also share your perspective with us.
Yeah, I think in comparison to the very accomplished urban planners in this room, I'm very much still learning on the job. But one thing that really struck me, I think, is that planning has, as Minister mentioned earlier, really focused on the area of participatory planning. So this is something that I felt that, as a young planner 10 years ago, this was something that we did, but not to this extent. More and more people are increasingly interested in the loss of, for example, biodiversity, greenery in Singapore, the loss of heritage. And as planners, I think it's really important for us to take a step back and to really assess and to hear people out on the ground. So I think even for us, for our recent remaking of Heartland Batch 4 towns, Ang Mo Kio, Choa Chu Kang, Queenstown, and Bukit Merah, we're really looking at this in a very big way. We did carry out an e-survey in early 2020, 2 years ago. First round of focus group discussions at the end of 2020, and then yet a second round last year. So it's very important for us to continually refine and to review our plans to make sure that whatever we put out there really strikes the hearts of people on the ground, and that we're doing the best we can to cater to their needs.
Yeah, I think one thing I learned about planning is really this thing called stakeholder management, right? Yeah, so I think that's one skill set that planners must have. Yeah, so I think Derek is the winner of our SIP Young Planners of the Year Award. I think Shi Tiong started the SIP Planning Award. I think we've taken it on, and now we've also award people and not just project. And that's how we engage also the reach out more to the fraternity. Yeah, so I think I want to throw the floor open. What's the way to say? What's the way? Yeah, okay. So I would like to invite, all of you to, really come forward and ask a question to our panelists. I think there's a chance for this. We wanted today to be really an informal. We say, don't want to have lessons, about planning. Today is really a good chance for us to interact, people coming from different decades, of planning. And so really like to invite you to, raise questions and ask questions that you want to the lovely panelists here. Yeah, I just want to invite questions from the floor. And for the people who is in the room, I would need to ask you to come out here, chance for you to come out here to the mic. Because of limited budget, we could not have another camera there to stream. So you have to come here to ask questions. Yeah. Yeah, please. Anyone?
One very challenging thing is to harness our solar power. And they keep saying that we don't have enough capacity to use to put our solar panels everywhere. And I think nobody thought of the fact that we can string across these panels across all the HDB blocks, because they are all standardized in 10 stories, they're standardized in spacing, and they could be covered in bit of the space in between and give every apartment protection from the heat and the sun and the rain. And then we have an open covered area. I hope this is something that can be done in a bold manner.
You mean put on the HDB roof or?
No, not on the roof, between the
in
blocks.
between the blocks.
Between the blocks, you can have like canvas spanning across 2 blocks throughout the whole town. You start with a few blocks and can grow bigger and bigger. And you can have a semi-covered area, play area on the ground level, and it gives the protection to every window against heat, rain, and sun. I wish it can be done. Then it becomes a real solar city. We should show the way for the rest of the world.
So is it now a panelist asking the audience question? Can I ask whether HDB wants to answer?
Actually, this is really a government policy. I remember the discussion we had when Mr. Dhanabalan was the Minister of National Development, and he was so stimulated by all these wild ideas that I think he agreed that that ideas should come from the rest of the people and not only from the government. And that's why he invited all our panels to work on development guide plans and throw a lot of ideas. And I was very delighted because this gives us a chance to debate and dialogue with him. And we persuaded him to do waterfront housing, because in my study in Changi, we said that why are you reclaiming land in the parallel to the coast? You should land it in like fingers out into the sea, so that in between the land part, you always have water, you have water. And he was very intrigued of the idea, and he told us the problem of laws about foreshores ordinance and all this. And all these things can overcome if you have the will to do it. So I think that is quite wonderful to know.
We are putting solar panels on our reservoirs,
Yeah,
right?
but not enough space, because we will never have the capacity to generate the kind of power that makes it viable. See, and I'm a bit skeptical about covering our reservoirs with solar panels, when if you cover the space between buildings, the buildings will benefit. The buildings will benefit because you can keep your windows open because you have this half shaded. It's like having canvas between streets, you know. I mean, the first time when we're talking about putting a roof over a street, like Bugis Street and all that, it was a very wild idea, but it was wonderful to have the space in between that's shaded, which is Singapore's challenge, is to contain the heat, lower the temperature, and still be comfortable, and no aircon. That's the challenge for the next 50 years.
I see people lining up, yeah. Would you like to introduce yourself first? Yeah.
Hi. Wait, this mask is kind of... Maybe Eddie want to go first? Okay. Hi. My name is David Liu. X of many things. Ex-URA, ex-Sabana, ex-CPG. Okay. I've been the SIP members for, I think, almost 30 years, yeah? I want to ask about leadership, concerning leadership. I think everything rises and falls on leadership. So Singapore is very fortunate that we have a great leadership in LKY, and subsequently, and we have many able, capable leadership across in the country, in the URA institution. So to the SIP, I'm very thankful in the last, this present term of the leadership has brought this SIP in a greater profile, in a brighter outlook, and so forth. But since we have so many leaders here, my question is, going forward, because you know I'm sure SIP will continue to face challenges in terms of how to make itself more relevant and how it attract more a younger profession, younger architects or planners to come on board to join SIP, to continue to, nurture the profession. So I like the panel and the leaders of the SIP to share with us perhaps your, share with the members, what do you see going forward? What are the challenges that you would need to deal with or respond to? And maybe some nugget of wisdom for the future batch of the leadership for SIP to take us forward to another level. Thank you.
Look at Wilfred. No. I think let me just turn it around. Maybe for the panelists also, some of you have been previously with the president, yeah? And actually, what would you think you like SIP to do more for the members? Or what SIP can do more to be more relevant for the members? I agree that it's very challenging finding the next batch of council. Remember how we always, it was very hard every time before AGM. Yeah, and it takes a lot of personal commitment to be in SIP council. Yeah.
The greatest achievement is that Singapore is able to produce people and export their talent to other cities, other third world. There's so much that can be done even in our immediate neighborhood. I mean, we're all looking at China and now we're looking at India. But what about Indonesia? What about Philippines? These people all need planning and need new towns. And I think this is our achievement that the government should promote, because it's an export of talent that we can have, instead of us keep complaining why there are no talent, that we are importing other foreign firms to here. We have our own talent. If only they have been given the opportunities to try to work, as has been proven in all these other new towns that we have participated in China. And I was jokingly talking once to one of the government minister that since we are able to lease quite a lot of our land for our army SAF use in Australia, even in Arizona, and in Taiwan and all that, we should in fact use those huge land parcel and do little Singapores. Do little Singapore and putting all our Singapore planning principles there. We export this knowledge of governing the town and building the town to build new charter cities, because it is going to be done on a government-to-government basis, because private sector cannot do. But if Australia can prepare to lease several bases for us to use as our air force, as our army base, the next thing is to introduce the Singapore, community who wants to live there, who wants to work there, who will be educated there, into a little Singapore town everywhere.
I'd like to suggest something. So one of the great things that this particular term that the project, the SIP-SIA collaboration in kind of dreaming up the new future of PLAB is really new to SIP, and as part of the one of the fraternity too. Yeah, because like what was inferred, like Sitian was saying, in a way, planners are orchestrators. They can help people see their dreams and come together to do things together. Yes. And it's a pity that not more young people grow up and say, I want to be a planner, but you need to kind of start there. Bring other people, see how planners work, okay? Start with our peers first, then with students, not just planning students, but A-level students. And make planning knowledge stays for planner thinking, visionary thinking.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I'm going to suggest.
My response, I also want to respond to that, is the weakness of planners, Singapore planners in the private sector, is we don't really have that much track record in planning. our track record is being in Singapore, learning Singapore as a living lab, learning from, you know, all the agencies, but we never can say that these are our track record, you know. So that's always the sort of, it's not like architect, you know. I mean, I'm also an architect. I know I can say I designed the Treasury building, you know, that's my track record. But you cannot never say that you design each thing now or what, right? So being able to be in participatory projects like PLAB, I'm looking at Minister, like more chance. It's not easy, you know, we struggle for PLAB, but being able to open up for the planning fraternity here to be involved and to learn and also interact with, you know, agencies, we then can put some of this in our track record, and when we go out, that's very good. And I must say that planner, I mean, I'm like a crossover planner, are more team workers than architects, right? If you just purely work with architects, it's even harder. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, maybe I can just throw the... Sure.
Hi. Good evening. Oh, sorry, she don't want to...
Yeah, I just react a little bit to what Liu, I haven't seen Liu for a while. Yes, you have put on so much weight. So prosperous. Okay. I see in future leadership in this age, whether it's political leadership, whether it's planning leadership, the world has become flatter. We should not hinge on one leader, because when the leader collapses, there's a sense of loss, you know. So China, for example, is having a rolling program. Yeah, even though Xi Jinping is trying to be president for life. But there is a consistent and conscious training of his successor. I'm sure when he can find a successor who is as strong as him in fighting corruption, he will step down. It's just that he just has not found one. So I believe even SIP, you know, we do not depend on one person, on one, you know, term or whatever that is. You need to create a structure of corporation or whatever the institution. How do we run the institution at that level? And I think my planning thesis, public participation. Up to today, I still believe in bottom-up, not top-down, and even level sort of participation. So everybody has a good sense of belonging, and they are able to contribute. So this is my little thought on that. So whoever is the conductor able to get all the orchestra member to play their instrument perfectly within their own part, conductor is just there to stitch them together. He is not the composer. He's just interpreting the composer and depending on the technicality of each of the players to bring the best out of that composition. So I think leadership is just about that. And planner is a generalist and is a natural leader of any team. Yeah? So must be able to get urban designer, economists, everybody to work. And today we are talking about cross-disciplinary. That is why the faculty in NUS has changed to College of Design and Engineering, like the German system. Architect is feeling bad. I say, no. Today, do you architect know what is metaverse? You need an engineer to explain what is metaverse. But Zaha Hadid already designed, do a master plan for a metaverse city in Liberland. Huh? You read about that one, right? So we have to keep up with the latest in technology. That's why in my urban planning and urban design students, which I'm teaching as an adjunct professor, you know what are the topics I set for them? Last year, I used a topic, self-sufficient city. You do anything you like. There's no brief. Self-sufficient city, how it works in Singapore at Simpang. Okay? This year, I give them another topic in Jurong East, southern part of Jurong East, a title, Post-Pandemic City. How to design a post-pandemic city. So I think we need to keep up with the medical, with the geopolitical, with everything. and be up to date. Be up to date. Yeah, that's all.
She can go on and on. There's so much. Yeah, I think one more question, one last question. No, people are giving me the look. Yeah, one last question.
Yeah, telling
and then,
me about the
yeah.
look. Anyway, Eddie Young here. Friends and colleagues know me that, okay, if you suspect that the question is planted in my ears, actually. But anyway, okay, people that knows me, that know that I'm very only like China, like Chinese China, because I've been trying to practice in China. And we heard so much about, how great Singapore planning is, and then we can like go around the whole world, promote Singapore, create many, many small Singapore all over the world. Okay, but in recent years, we have also seen the leaps and bounds in China. Okay, then my question, perhaps not only to the panel member, but also to our agency, CLC, URA, schools, how do we continue to be relevant in China? Do we have small things, in our sleeve to share and teach Chinese cities? Or are we about to learn? And what can we learn from the Chinese cities in their planning implementation? And to a certain extent, I'm quite a strong advocate of top-down planning. I mean, I learned from, who. We always believe in, we Singapore being able to do what we do is that we have a very, very strong government. And the other country in the world is China. We have a very strong government. And in China, we can make things happen. So my question is really, how do we continue to be relevant? Thank you.
I guess we'll be looking at you.
Hello. Yeah. Singaporeans, sometimes I use a naughty word, a bit swell-headed. Yeah, when we go to Singapore. Therefore, every time they come here for training, yeah, for so-called training on Singapore planning and governance, I have to be very humble and say that we are just one of your county, yeah, the size of a county of 5 million people. You actually got nothing to learn from us. Maybe a few things, corruption and governance. They say, no, there are so many things about planning we can learn from you. Actually, they are being so humble. Actually, they know everything. They know all about Liu Taiker's neighborhood concept. They just want to test you. Does this apply to any part of China? So we don't get caught, think that that is a perfect model. Okay? I'm no offense to Dr. Liu, who's my teacher and my best friend. A lot of people are saying his neighborhood concept is outdated. That was 50 years ago. Today, China has changed. We cannot take his concept. So I said, what's wrong with his concept? His concept very simple, just humanistic. Yeah? Not iconic, not visual. Planning is based on walking distance. 5 minutes you walk to where, 20 minutes you walk to where. Okay, today everybody talk about 15-minute city, right? As if it's such a new concept. This is 1933. Clarence Perry already talked about it. Then Liu Taiker improved on it, turned into an Asian model. So I say the essence of Liu Taiker thing is humanistic planning. You can throw away his 400 by 400. You can change to a Barcelona super block or whatever there is, any size. But is it humanistic? Is it planning for nearly car-like city, walking city? Liu Taiker, 50 years ago, talking about walking city, as if you have no cars. So that is the essence. We need to take the essence, whatever the modeling is immaterial. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. So Singaporean, please don't say that we are the best. I hate that word. In China, I never dare to say the word. Because you said it, they will say, yes, you are so good. But deep in their heart, get lost. We don't believe in you, We have our you want to hear what we say? Yeah. So be humble, then we are learning. Things like metaverse and all that. I talk about it, even my students talk about it. I tell you, all my Chinese students, 90% are Chinese students in the US, doing planning and urban design. They know everything about metaverse, which we don't even know. Okay? They know the latest of development. So please We
Yeah.
just need to be humble. That's all.
And humanistic. Well, that's such a wonderful way to end the session. Yeah, I think, yeah, it feels like we need to have part 2, but this is really wonderful. Yeah, I think next we like to, present, ask Minister and Wilfred to present a token of appreciation to our panelists. Minister, please. Yeah. Maybe start from the Chee Heng first. Yeah. Yeah, just Derek. Yeah, Shi Tiong, please. Hui Min. Yeah, Minister, can we take a good photo with you? Yeah.
We hope you have enjoyed this evening's session, and we hope to see you again. Have a safe journey. Bye. Good night.